Life is still happening. You still move through your days, still experience conversations, places, routines, and moments. But emotionally, nothing seems to fully reach you anymore. Experiences happen, yet internally, they feel strangely difficult to hold on to. Days pass faster. Moments disappear emotionally almost as soon as they happen. And over time, it can begin feeling like life itself lost some of its emotional weight. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly, as if reality stopped emotionally landing the way it once did. What makes this difficult to explain is that everything may still appear normal from the outside. You still function, still respond normally, still understand what should matter emotionally. But internally, something feels weaker than before. Good moments fade faster. Conversations leave less emotional impact. Experiences no longer stay with you the same way. And slowly, life starts feeling emotionally thinner. Not empty, not hopeless, just harder to emotionally connect to while it is happening. As if part of your emotional system stopped fully absorbing your experiences. At first, the change feels subtle. You assume you're simply tired, distracted, mentally overloaded. But eventually, you begin noticing something deeper. Experiences still happen, but emotionally, they no longer stay with you. You move through moments that should feel emotionally alive, while internally remaining strangely unaffected by them. Even excitement can feel temporary, as if your emotional system briefly touches experiences before disconnecting from them again. Sometimes, entire days pass without leaving any emotional trace behind. And slowly, reality itself begins feeling emotionally quieter. Not because life became meaningless, but because your emotional connection to it became weaker. Sometimes this happens after long periods of emotional overload. The emotional system can only sustain intense emotional responsiveness for so long before it begins protecting itself, especially after chronic stress, overstimulation, emotional exhaustion, constant mental engagement, prolonged emotional pressure. Eventually, the mind starts reducing emotional intensity automatically. Not because emotions disappear, but because remaining emotionally open all the time becomes exhausting to sustain. And over time, emotional distance stops affecting only relationships. It begins affecting the way reality itself emotionally feels. This is why many people describe this feeling as emotional numbness, even when they are still capable of feeling emotions. Because the problem is not always emotional absence. Sometimes the problem is reduced emotional absorption. You continue experiencing life externally without fully feeling emotionally connected to it internally. Moments happen around you, but emotionally, they pass through too quickly. Days begin blending together. Experiences fade faster than they used to, and slowly, emotional presence becomes weaker overall. You begin noticing how difficult it feels to emotionally stay connected to moments while they are happening, as if part of your emotional world keeps drifting away from the experience itself. One of the strangest parts of this experience is how quiet it feels. There is no dramatic emotional collapse, no obvious breakdown, only a gradual reduction in emotional vividness repeated over time. You begin observing life more than emotionally participating in it. Moments feel distant while they are happening. Even calm or beautiful experiences can feel difficult to emotionally hold on to internally. Sometimes it feels like reality passes through you without fully staying with you afterward. And eventually, emotional autopilot begins shaping the way life feels itself. You continue existing normally, but emotionally, part of you no longer feels fully connected to the experience of being alive. Even memories can begin feeling emotionally thinner than they once did, as if experiences happened but never fully settled emotionally inside you afterward. Reality still happens, but emotionally, it does not stay. And maybe this is the part most people misunderstand. Nothing feels emotionally real anymore, not because you stopped caring about life, but because your emotional system adapted to functioning in a more emotionally guarded state for too long. So, instead of fully absorbing experiences emotionally, it learned how to stay partially detached from them, not to destroy emotional connection, but to reduce emotional overload. And after enough time, emotional distance begins feeling normal, even when life itself has not changed. Eventually, you stop questioning the emotional absence. You adapt to it. Life continues moving, days continue passing, experiences continue happening. But emotionally, everything begins feeling slightly farther away than it once did. And maybe this is why so many people quietly feel disconnected from their own lives without fully understanding why. Because emotional unreality rarely feels dramatic. Most of the time, it simply feels like reality stopped emotionally reaching you the same way it once did. Nothing suddenly stops feeling emotionally real. The emotional distance builds slowly, moment by moment, experience by experience, until eventually emotional detachment starts feeling more natural than emotional immersion itself. And maybe the problem is not that life became empty. Maybe part of your emotional world simply became too exhausted to keep fully opening itself to every experience. If this video felt familiar, maybe your emotional world has been protecting itself more quietly than you realized. Subscribe to Quiet Clarity for more contemplative psychological reflections on the hidden emotional patterns shaping modern life.